Morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. We'll start for real at about 9:05. In the meantime, feel free to submit questions or upvote questions on the Slido. I think you have the link in your email, and maybe someone can paste it in the Zoom chat as well. Hello, everyone. We'll get started in just a couple of minutes. But again, while you're waiting, put the link to the Slido in the Zoom chat. So feel free to ask questions and upvote other people's questions there while we wait. And yeah, we'll be back in just a minute to get started. All right. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining for the PhysGap webinar. We'll go ahead and get started. So first, a couple of things. So nothing that we say is the official stance of the admissions committee today. This is all just us giving our opinions based on our experiences. And we cannot predict or influence who will be admitted, but we are here to help you as much as we can. So what we're going to be doing, first, I'll give a quick introductory presentation, really quickly going over the application and some frequently asked questions and pointing you to some resources on various websites. And then we'll jump into the Q&A on Slido. So in the meantime, feel free to continue to ask and upvote questions on the Slido. The application is due on December 15th. It's very important. It will not be accepted after December 15th. So please try and get everything submitted, maybe even a day or two in advance. It includes an online application with some biographical data. There's an application fee. The application will not be read if the application fee is not paid, but we do have fee waivers, and we'll have more on that in a minute, but don't feel afraid to look into that. You need transcripts, unofficial are fine, 3 letters of recommendation. You can submit more, but at least last I was aware of, the committee would generally only read 3. Then you can provide a list of research experience, honors, awards, your statement of objectives, and the optional personal statement. And then this year, the GRE scores are recommended, and I'm sure we'll talk more about that in the Q&A. So fee waivers. Anyone who has participated in MSRP, Converge, or other MIT programs are automatically eligible for a fee waiver. There's a link you can check out there. Other underrepresented or under-resourced applicants may request a fee waiver from the Office of Graduate Education. There's a link there. You can also just Google MIT fee waiver, and I'm sure it'll come up. If you are not eligible for a fee waiver through OGE, then you will be prompted to submit a departmental fee waiver in the application portal. And so this will come to the Department of Physics instead of centrally to MIT. And the physics department also has a number of fee waivers that can be provided. Fee waivers, this is very important, can only be considered before you submit the application, but after all parts of it are complete, including transcript uploads and requesting letters of recommendation. So make sure your application is all finished when you request a fee waiver. This is so that we're not giving out fee waivers to people who aren't actually going to submit the application. And you must request a fee waiver before December 1st. All right, so the language tests, the TOEFL and IELTS, we do not have a cutoff score, but there are typical scores that you can see here, 7 on the IELTS, 200 on the computer-based TOEFL, or 100 on the IBT TOEFL. These tests are required if you're from a country where English is not the primary language, but if you have been in the US or a country whose official language is English for 3 years or longer, and will have received a degree from a college or university in a country where English is the language of education, then you do not need to submit these. And there's a bunch more information on the FAQ section of the admissions website. So if you have questions, I encourage you to take a look at that. Another question we get a lot is about faculty sponsors. Do you need to reach out to faculty members to apply? No, you do not. You do not need to reach out to a faculty member before submitting your application. And we certainly encourage people to reach out to faculty after admission, but you do not need to do so before then. I also just want to point you again to the graduate admissions page on the physics department website. There's a lot of great information there. This is just kind of the blurb at the top that lays out the many great things that you can find there, including this section on some general guidelines for what is included in a strong graduate application for physics at MIT. So please check that out. There's also all of these FAQs, which I will go through real quickly, and then we will kind of skip through them if they're asked during the Q&A, because this information is on the website. So very quickly, do you need a degree in physics specifically in order to apply? No, you do not. What are the requirements to, okay, see the website for the requirements. You can take courses at other schools nearby, like Harvard. It usually takes 5 to 7 years to complete the PhD. How will you pay for your studies? Everyone is guaranteed a TA, an RA, or a fellowship, so you do not need to self-fund your PhD. A lot of people ask how many applications we get and how many are accepted. I think lately we've been getting about 2,000 applications and admitting about 90 students. There are no minimum cutoffs on any exams to be admitted. The deadline is December 15th. You can apply, even if it has been difficult to take standardized tests, but we do recommend the GRE. See the website for the English language exam requirements. We do provide fee waivers, I already mentioned that. We are not generally arranging visits for students prior to admission to the department. We also do not offer updates on the status of applications after they have been submitted. We will notify you of a final decision before March 1st. And some people wonder if you can start in a term other than the next fall semester. This is pretty rare, but in special occasions, it does happen. Okay, that was very fast. But if any of those were questions that you're interested in, I encourage you to go expand the little thing on the website and read in more detail. I also want to point you to the PhysGap website. This is new this year. It has lots of great stuff on it. sites.mit.edu/PhysGap. It has things including previous webinars. So there's several years of previous webinars where you can go and see more questions being answered, including transcripts. And this webinar and the webinar this afternoon are both being recorded. And it takes a little bit to get the transcripts processed, but once that happens, they will also appear on the website, so you can go check them out later. Okay, yes, and so this is one part of the PhysGap program, these webinars, but we also have an office hour program and a mentorship program. So next week, the office hours program will begin, and we'll send out info on this, I think, on Friday. And then later this fall, the one-on-one mentorship application will be released. So this one-on-one mentorship may be a good fit for you if you feel like you lack other resources to help you navigate the application process, you have used the other forms of assistance that we provide, like you have attended the webinar and you've gone to office hours, but still feel like you need extra assistance, and you think you would really benefit from one-on-one mentorship. So I encourage you all to check out these resources and see if they are useful for you. Check out the PhysGap website to learn more about each of these different things that we offer. Yeah, great. And so now we will switch over to the Q&A section. So this will be done through all through Slido. So if you have any questions, that is where you should be putting them. Here is the QR code for that. It's also should be in your email. And please take a look at what other questions are there and upload them before asking your own. If we don't address your questions during the webinar, consider showing up to office hours. Again, that starts next week. And I think depending on maybe the size of your screen, the panelists should have their divisions displayed below their names. We'll also do introductions real quick. So I'll start off and then maybe we can go around while I get the Slido pulled up. So I'm Kyle. I'm a 5th year student in AMO. And maybe I'll say Megan, you can go next.
Hey, hi everyone. My name is Megan. I'm a 5th year grad student in Astro, and I will call on Vivian to go next.
Okay. Hello, I'm Vivian. I'm 1st year PhD student in AMO, and I'm international student. I think next one I will Ke-Xin.
Hi, my name is Ke-Xin. I'm in the field of CMX, condensed matter experiment. I'm a 1st year PhD student here. I'm also an international student. I originally from China, but I did my undergrad in the US.
I can go real quick. I'm Chris. I'm a 3rd year student in the astrophysics division. And Hao Chen.
Hi, my name is Hao Chen. I'm a 6th year PhD student in Astro Division. I'm an international student as well. I will call Jennifer to go next.
Hi, everyone. I'm Jenny Resch. I am the new grad admin for the physics department. I will call on Shannon next.
Hi, I'm Shannon Larkin. I'm the Assistant Director of Academic Programs in Physics, and I will call on Kaylin.
Hi, I'm Kaylin. I'm a 2nd year student in Astro.
All right, great. I think we hit everyone. And I have the Slido ready. So yeah, here we go. And again, the QR code is here, or you can go to slido.com and punch in that number on the bottom left to ask and upvote questions. Megan, am I on the right one? Is this looking good?
Yes.
Okay. All right, perfect. Okay, so the first question that we'll answer, and again, panelists, just raise your Zoom hand if you want to answer any question, and I will call on people. The first question we have is the MIT Physics Graduate Admissions Committee based, committee-based or faculty-based? Do you recommend reaching out to potential advisors before submitting applications? Is there anyone who would like to take a stab at this one? Okay, oh, am I seeing people's hands? Sorry. Okay. Hao Chen, yes.
Yeah, I can say a few words. So I think maybe people are wondering if you need specific faculty member to sponsor you to apply. The answer is no. So it's really your application is viewed by a committee, which is a group of faculties. So you do not need to have one specific faculty to say that they want to work with you in order to be admitted. So I think the general approach is that we do not really require or recommend applicants to reaching out to advisors before submitting application, because most professors or faculties here, in general, like faculties in grad schools, very busy. So it is unlikely they will respond to your request if you just send them emails. If you really want to get to know like some faculty members and to see if they are taking students. So one thing sometimes I tell people to do is that you could look into their graduate student. For example, go to the website and see what graduate student they work with. For example, if you wonder if they're taking student, you could try to email like a grad student and try to figure out what's their lab is like. Yeah.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and I guess the only thing I'll add to this maybe is a little bit about how the process of how the applications are read. So first it's read by the admissions committee, which is made up of the chair and usually 3 student readers if you tick the box in the application that says that your application can be read by students, and they read all of the applications, and then they send some fraction of those out to the divisions, and then but still it's like groups of faculty in each division then read the applications. Yeah. All right, great. Okay, the next question is, how much of a boost does 1 or more publications give to an application? Chris?
Yeah, sure. I don't think there's really any way to like quantify it. I mean, it sure doesn't hurt, but there are certainly many incoming graduate students who did not have a publication starting grad school. When I applied, I didn't have a publication. So yeah, it's definitely very possible to get in without publications, but you know, it's of course a positive, I guess.
Great. Yeah. Okay, if no one else wants to add anything to that. Oh, Haojin, go ahead.
Yeah, so the committee will view applications holistically, and so whether it will actually boost your application depends on the other materials you have, right? So people in general have good performance in classes, strong letters of recommendation, personal statement, and they all matter very much. So a publication can, of course, help, but it's not the only thing that matters, right?
Yeah, great. All right. Moving on to the next question. How do you begin your personal statement and statement of objectives? So I think this is a will be different for everyone, but sure, Vivian.
Yeah, so I can share mine. Basically, the way I think about this is how do I want to set the story of like the whole application? Like this is very important as a first sentence of like both personal and statement of purpose. So the way I started my SOP is like, oh, in the past like this year, like in my undergrad, I have opportunities to explore this specific field, and then I started a story about like in my research experience, how did I get interested and excited about this field and like the research I want to do in the future. And the personal statement I started more like how do I get like what kind of person I want to show outside of research, like I want to emphasize in this statement that's not directly related to my research work. So I would say the first sentence is like thinking about what kind of major point you want to convey and then emphasize it.
Yeah, great. I think I would recommend against starting your statements with when I was a young child, I looked up at the stars, and that's why I wanted to study physics, because that has been heard far too many times, and I don't think lands much of a punch with the admissions committee. So I would recommend against that one. Yeah, Kishan.
My structure of the state of purpose is quite similar to Vivian. In my personal statement, I wrote about why I chose physics and arts as my double major in the undergrad, and how these two connect, and how this extra major give me skills that can make me a better physics researcher. And another point I want to bring out is that I found it really, really helpful that I asked a lot of friends, and especially PhD student friends, to help me look at the statements. And they gave me a lot of good feedback that like I revised them, which I found helpful.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks. Kaylin.
Slightly more general than just talking about the beginning of the statement, but more the overall structure. A good piece of advice that I got was you want to be sure to signpost your readers as they're going. Don't be afraid to bold particular sentences. In your first paragraph, you can introduce who you want to be, as has been said, and then say, as a PhD student at this school, this is what I want to study. Make sure that your reader can follow it both at a broad level, so if they just skim your statement, they have an understanding of who you are. And when they go through and read it in more detail, they have an even stronger sense of the things that you want to do and the skills that you've developed along the way and how you want to apply those in grad school. So don't be afraid to use different kinds of formatting and structure to make your statement as clear as possible.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Some great advice on that one. So the next question, this applicant wants to know, I guess, the order of importance or what you think would be best as far as who you get your letters from. So research professor, a company manager, or a professor that you took a course from but did not do research with. Chris.
Yeah, I think I was kind of in a similar boat making this decision. And I think from the point of view of the admissions committee, they're looking for people who can thrive at MIT, which means conducting research and thriving doing that. And so what yes, so I think in general it's optimal to have letters from people who know a lot about you and know how you conduct research, what your skills are. I would say it's maybe equally important just to have a strong recommender from someone who knows you well. So if you have a research professor who, you did some work for, but they don't know you too well, that you also have to consider the scale of how well they know you. So it might be stronger to have a company manager or a teaching professor who you interacted with a lot, who they saw your certain skills. So I would say on those two sliding scales, you need to balance the how well they know your research and how well they know you personally, and will write a strong letter.
Yeah, great. Yeah, I guess I'll say that, right, you get 3 letters too. So, but I think if possible, if you have done sort of any kind of research or independent work like that, you should have at least one of your letters be from someone who knows you in that context. Okay, great. Okay, so a question about the personal statement. If I don't have significant life challenges or non-traditional background, should I still write something? Vivian?
Yeah, so I also feel the same way when I applied, but basically what I wrote about in my personal statement is I think about where is my time in undergrad goes, like where did I spend my time? So basically I wrote about how I spent 4 years working at a research reactor, which is not directly related to my field of research right now, but that shows my commitment to a job and also like teamwork and all the other important skills in terms of like group work in general. So I feel like if you have something that you have like put a lot of time into it in your undergrad, and just talk about how those skills can be applied into your PhD, like research or research work in general, like how can that help you to become a good scientist. I feel like that's a very valuable personal statement. So basically think about what you have what you have put your time in and what you get out of it, and then lay it out as a good story.
Yeah. I think one thing that we say a lot is the personal statement is where you can put anything that you feel like is important for the committee to know, but it doesn't have a natural home somewhere else in your application. So, and that can be different for everyone. All right. Next question is it more difficult to apply to research areas different from our undergraduate research experience? Anyone want to comment on this? Sure, Chris.
Yeah, I would say if you have transferable skills and knowledge from your other area, I don't think it's inherently more difficult to change research areas. So I think that it's important to highlight where those skills connect and why you're interested in this new field of study. And I think what might be a little bit what might make it more difficult is that you do have to kind of show that you know what you're talking about and you've done the digging into what people at MIT work on. And so you have to put in a little bit of extra work to understand the new research area and to make sure you know what you're talking about when you're talking about working with certain professors at MIT.
Yeah, definitely. I can say a little bit. It wasn't like a full change of field, but I think what I did in undergrad was more like condensed matter experiment, and I do AMO now. But yeah, exactly. Like highlighting the skills that you have that transfer over, and definitely, I think we'll get to this a little bit in the next question as well. Figuring out who you want to work for in the new field is very important. Anyone else wanted to say something about this? Sure, Vivian.
Yeah, I can also say a little bit because in my undergraduate work, I do mostly the most related things is probably content optics, and also like a computational work that related to content technology wise. But I feels like other of my bigger research experience are mostly in particle physics, and try to emphasize the one that I think connected to the research field I'm in the most, and then yeah, really spend a lot of time reading through the current research. It's very likely that one cannot understand very well because they're all very hard, like very new frontier research. But talking about like what interests you and what makes you think this will be a good fit for you going into this new research area, like what have worked for you and what have not worked for you in the past, and your past research experience can also be like a supporting material for that. Is like, yeah, I tried this and I think I like which aspect of it more, so I think it will be better if I work in this field.
Great. All right. Yeah. So let's move on to the closely related next question. So as for indicating faculty readers, should we select faculty who are familiar with our undergraduate research or faculty we would like to work with? Who has thoughts on this one? I can go first while people, oh, Shannon, go ahead. Yeah.
Faculty you want to work with. The selecting of your faculty readers indicates where your application is likely to be funneled once it's been previewed. So if you want to work with somebody, that's who you want to look at your application.
Yes, definitely. And to add on to that a little bit, and what we were saying in the previous question, you want to take some time to learn about those faculty members. And so I think this question was about, like, there's a section in the online application where you lists faculty that you might want to read your application, but also in your statement of objectives, you should be talking about the faculty that you want to work with, and they should probably be the same people in both places. And you should make it clear that you have spent some time learning about these faculty members and thinking about why you want to work with them. All right, the next question is about how important the PGRE is for international students. Hao-Chen?
Yeah. So GRE scores are recommended this year. So which means if you have the ability to take the GRE and physics GRE, you are recommended to do so. And particularly for physics GRE, the admissions committee want to see the scores because they want to make sure that you have sufficient background in physics and can handle the coursework here. So there are usually at least two metric the admissions committee can use to quantify that. And first is your college coursework. But if you are international student and your college curriculum can look very different from the US. So in the US, every class you will be assigned a letter grade and every student receive a GPA. But if you are from an international school and if your school does not provide those kind of information, then it will be difficult for the admissions committee to quantify your preparation for courses. So in that case, I think a physics GRE can really help. Or if you didn't do a physics major and you want to demonstrate that you have basic understanding in physics, and then in that case, the physics GRE can also be important.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I'll just echo again that like if you're from some closely related field or even a more distantly related field, I think the physics GRE is a great way to demonstrate that you're ready for a PhD in physics. We have a question about what GRE score is required to strengthen my application. So I guess I'll start by saying there are no hard cutoffs anywhere in the admissions process, and that includes the physics GRE. So there is no hard cutoff physics GRE score. Yeah, Hao-Chen.
Yeah, I guess this is similar to the previous question, right? So if you have a different major, or maybe you did a major in physics in undergrad, but because of some reasons, maybe pandemic, maybe some other reasons, that you did not get an ideal grade in one of the physics courses. And in that case, the physics GRE can demonstrate that you actually have those skills, right?
Yeah, great. Okay, let's move on to the next question. So, does the division specializing in quantum computing and quantum field theory at MIT conduct interviews as part of the admissions process? I don't know, do we have anyone here from like CTP? So I probably, I guess, the closest related in AMO, but it's different by division. And I think it can even vary, like, you know, depending on who's on the admissions sort of subcommittee in that division, or like some people can get interviews and other people who are still admitted may not get interviews. So I don't think we have a firm answer on this one. But I guess generally, oh, sure, Vivian.
Yeah, I also not sure about QIS, but like at least in AMO last year, which is my year, I think most, not everyone, but most of people who got an interview. So that's a data point. But I also know there are some field that they did not do any interview.
Yeah, definitely. In AMO, I did not have an interview several years ago when I applied. In general, the interviews are like in January sometime, I think, and you'll, get an email about this if you are asked to do an interview. But if not, that doesn't mean that you're not going to be admitted. Definitely. And I guess I'll also mention, I think that interviews are sometimes used as well as a way to sort of assess English proficiency if that is not conveyed fully in other parts of the application. So they can be used for a lot of different things. Okay, so what to do if no professors in my field of interest are open to grad students that year? So, yeah, Hao-Chen.
Yeah, so if you are really sure that you have reached out to professor and they are saying that they are not interested in taking student, I think in that case, I think should apply broadly, because certainly you want to go to a grad school where you know that there are people you want to work with. The match with professors is actually very important when you decide which place to go.
Yeah, it's hard to know ahead of time whether the professors in your field of research are or aren't looking for students. I guess I'll also say that it's probably important to have like more than just one professor who you would want to work with and who would be potentially looking for students. So I don't know what this question asker, how many professors or how narrow their field of research they think that is, but they might look around a little bit more broadly, and like the PI I work for now, I don't think I even put them on my statement of purpose. I didn't realize they were doing the research that they are doing. So I would encourage you to look around a little bit more and maybe widen who you think fits in your field of research. Oh, can we perform an anatomy of statement of purpose and personal statement? What are the key elements? And okay, and then I think we've talked about the theory enough. And I'll also say that a lot of there's some good information on this on the physics admissions website, and so I would encourage you to check that out as well. But maybe we can have, I don't know, if anyone has something they would like to add that we have not already said about these, feel free to jump in, but we have already talked a little bit about the structure of these. Sure, Vivian.
Yeah, I think one thing I want to add, just like kind of follow up from the previous question, is make sure you spend enough like part of your SOP talking about a professor you want to work with. I definitely put a lot more effort into writing my MIT application about like which professors I want to work with, and spend like a fair amount of like length on those, and like why like I want to work with them, and then why are they doing that interests me a lot. So I feels like that's like the part sometimes people get very caught into, like, oh, I need to write about everything I've done in undergrad, and because they're so important I cannot cut any of them off. Try to concise them a little bit, and then make sure you have space to like elaborate on like why you want to go to this place. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, Shannon.
Just jumping onto the last comment, if you're going to write about professors that you want to work with, please make sure you spell their names correctly.
That is an excellent recommendation. Yes. Yeah, I think I've heard the so yeah, adding on to what Vivian said, the chair of the admissions committee, I think, has said that he generally wants to see like at least half a page of your statement dedicated to who you might want to work with and why you want to go to MIT, which is certainly more than I thought was expected when I was applying. Kaylin?
To try to condense this into a sense of an anatomy, you want to give the admissions committee a very clear sense of why you fit into MIT. You want to convince them on the first read that not only do you have the skills to thrive here as a researcher, but here's exactly how you're going to fit in with the existing research and people in there. So in terms of a sense of structure, you want to talk about the work that you've done, and even if it's not directly related to the fields you want to pursue in grad school, you can emphasize those transferable skills, the things that you're going to apply to your future areas of research. And then, yeah, I spent probably I think I spent 3/4 of a page out of the 2 pages on here are the people that I'm interested in working in, for each school, and here's how my past work will directly translate to, thriving in their group. So that's, there's not one standard way to write an SOP, but you do want to give the committee, after they read it, they should say, I know how and where this person is going to fit in our program.
Excellent. Yes. All right. Yeah, let's move on to the next question. We've talked about this a little bit. Is diversity or focus better for recommenders? This person's in CTP. Would it be better to have 3 theory or 2 theory and 1 experiment? But maybe just if one person wants to chime in on this one. Oh, I think Chris was first by a few milliseconds.
Maybe I'll just say again, I think if they're all people you've worked with, I think what really matters more in this case is, do they know you well and will they write you like a very strong letter? I think that's much more important than diversity.
Yeah, I agree. All right. I'm applying with a master's. Will my master's GPA hold more weight than my undergrad GPA? So maybe I'll say something, and Hao-Chen, I think you can feel free to correct me if this is incorrect, but my understanding is that the admissions committee kind of calculates their own GPA for you based on the grades you got in the courses that they think are most relevant, like in physics courses specifically, and looks at that more so than like this was their master's, year or 2 years, and this were their undergrad year or 2 years. Yeah, okay. But maybe I'll add one more thing. If there's like a reason that, you had lower grades at some point of that than others, then you should put that in the optional statement of purpose. That would be an excellent thing to go there. Is it possible to change research area from the one that I write in the statement of purpose to others? Kaylin?
If you're referring to after admissions and you're after you matriculate here, then yes, MIT does make it relatively straightforward for you to change your advisor within your division and also even change your research division. You can have a guaranteed semester of transitional funding to switch between, say, Astro and AMO, or condensed matter and quantum physics. So there is a lot of support for you to switch between advisors and even research divisions after enrolling.
Yeah, definitely. All right. Are there any red flags that you look for in applications? Other than staring up at the stars when you were in elementary school? Vivian.
Okay, this is probably not a red flag, but one thing I found almost like is a near miss for me is please check you change all the school names in your app, like in your SOP, because very likely you're going to have like a master version and then just change names in the one paragraph that you're talking about which professor you want to work with throughout the whole application process. So I feel like, yeah, just Control F and make sure all the schools' names are changed out correctly, and also all the professors' names are spelled correctly. Yeah, because and also like make sure the research field that you are writing, if you are applying to 2 different research fields, make sure the research field and the research the professors are doing are matched. Because if there's a mismatch, that people just say, oh, you didn't actually look into them close enough and things like that. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, Chris.
Yeah, I think Kyle, you mentioned this a bit, but for example, like a bad class grade or a slightly lower GRE score is maybe not an immediate red flag. Maybe it's a yellow flag, but the really red flag is if you don't like address it anywhere in your personal statement and say like, this is, what happened? This is why I, think I'm a good fit. And so yeah, if there are things that you think might be yellow flag elsewhere, then that's a good place to clear them up.
Yeah, great. Okay. Will a paper on the archive not yet accepted be counted as a publication? Yeah, Hao-Chen.
Yeah, this might be depend on the division, but at least from what I heard, at least what my advisor told me, a paper on archive is as good as being published.
Yeah, I think this is also my understanding as well. You should definitely include it in your application. Like don't leave it off. Just put, submitted or whatever. Or yeah, put the archive link or something. All right. Okay. Can I use AI tools for assistance with grammar, clarity, and style to ensure my statement of purpose is effectively communicated? Shannon.
There's no way that we can tell really if you're using AI tools. So, go ahead, but do make sure that if you're using AI tools, that you carefully proofread your statement afterwards to make sure that it hasn't include anything that's false about you or potentially just inaccurate.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is similar to what the chair of the admissions committee has said on this subject. But yeah, make sure it is very important that there is nothing false in your statements that will not reflect well. All right. Can recommendation letters be reused following year should I get rejected? So I think the answer to this is not directly, because you will have to, if you reapply, you'll have to submit the letters, and that means that an email goes to letter writers and they have to upload a letter again. You can't just like re-upload their letters.
That's correct.
Okay. So does GRE mean PGRE or PGRE and GRE in general? Shannon, yeah.
Oh, sorry. I meant to click the raise hand and I forgot. Just the PGRE. We don't really care about the general GRE.
Yeah. And I don't think there's a way to send the regular GRE is accepted anymore. So they at least won't look at it, is my understanding. All right. Did all of us, the MIT folk, apply with the GRE? So I can go first. I did, because I am old and applied when it was still absolutely required. But maybe some of the more recent applicants can chime in. Sure, Vivian first.
I did not. And I did took the exam, but I did not submit it because I feel like the score does not match my score on the transcript because I didn't spend as much time as I should to study for it. And I also think it's a little bit weird to, just it's kind of weird to prepare for that exam while I'm working all the other things at the same time. Yeah, so I did not submit it. But last year was optional though, so it's slightly different this year.
Yeah, Kishan?
I did not either. I did not study for it, did not take the exam, did not submit the score.
Yeah, but I think, well, actually, yeah, this is the first year that it has been recommended as opposed to either optional or required. So it is a little bit of a different situation from any of the three people who have weighed in on this. So yeah. Vivian, did you have something else?
Yeah, I want to add one more thing is I'm also graduate from a US undergrad institution. So even though I'm international students, I'm not like international in the sense that I need to use physics GRE to prove my grades in on my transcript. Yeah, because it's like more similar situation.
All right, great. Oh, how many hours do we work per week? Average and max. Um, Chris.
Yeah, I think you're gonna get very different answers. For me, I try to like treat it like a 9 to 5 job and like work roughly 40 a week, and anything on top of that is just like things that I'm really interested in or having fun. So maybe max will be like 50.
Great. I guess I'll add that this can vary by group as well. So this is something that, you know, maybe especially during like the open house after being admitted, you can ask the grad students in the groups that you're considering about this. And I think it is important to ask the students in the group and make sure that the group culture aligns with what you're looking for. All right. Oh, sorry, Kishan.
I just got here 2 months ago. I say my average is about 40 hours a week as well, but I'm taking 2 classes. So a majority of this 40 hours I spend in classes and homework.
Yeah, I think that's a very common first year or so experience. Oh, my main PI won't write a recommendation unless I continue working with them, so I asked someone else. Will this significantly impact my application? I guess what I'll say to this is that this is something that maybe should go in the personal statement, as with a lot of these kind of special case questions. And it's probably hard to say too much more without filling the details. As a computer science student, can I apply? Will my application meet prior degree requirements? Would sitting GRE make my application stronger? We've touched on this some already, but maybe if one person has anything to add. Okay, I'll just reiterate, I guess, that this might be a situation where the PGRE would make sense. How to decide on which graduate school/program should one apply to at MIT? For example, my faculties of interest work in fields of allied fields of physics, like CS and DMSE. Vivian?
I think one thing I realized after I got here is like it's fairly easy to have research supervisor outside of your own department. At least like, I know some people in my group like coming from like the MSc and other departments as well. So I would say like some people I know do apply to multiple, so that's the way to go. And the other way is like think about the degree requirements because for example physics does have a little bit more course requirements than like ECS and other departments. So also consider that part, like what kind of course you want to take.
Yeah. Also, a lot of faculty members have like appointments in multiple departments. So like my advisor also has an appointment in like EECS and mechanical engineering and like advises students in those programs without any extra. After being admitted, can I take a leave of absence for 6 months, complete my country's military service, and then resume my studies? Chris?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a very specific circumstance, but I just, know anecdotally that there are plenty of people with circumstances, somewhat similar, where the physics department has, done a lot to accommodate them or worked around schedules or set up, even like specific master's programs for people in military service. So like, I think it's likely that they would be accommodating.
Yeah. Shannon.
It depends a lot on the division that you're working in. Some divisions have options for remote work that can be accommodated for military service, and some have research projects going on that don't. So the answer is probably yes. We try hard to accommodate our students' needs, but it really depends on the circumstances.
Yeah. I'll add just one more data point, which is that I was waiting to hear back from like a Fulbright fellowship when I was had been admitted to the program, and I did not end up doing this, but the department was very accommodating about like, if I needed to go and do that for a year and then come back and start the defer admission a year, they were very accommodating about that. Does research experience / conference presentation in a subject other than physics have any impact on an application? Hao-Chin?
Yeah, I would say if you have, research experience, doesn't matter what field it is in, all kinds of research is required by a very similar skill set. So certainly include on your application.
Yeah, great. All right, we are approaching the end of the hour. So I want to make sure we don't go over. And I want to take a moment to thank all of the panelists and Shannon and Jenny for taking their time to answer all these questions. And I also want to say that if we did not get to any of your questions, never fear. Check out the other recordings of past webinars, but also like the office hours program that we offer and the one-on-one mentorship program and things like that. So yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and hopefully we'll see you throughout the rest of the application cycle and other PhysGap programs. All right, thanks everyone.